I'd been hiking for years. Whenever life became too loud, I'd disappear into the woods for a few hours. No music, no podcasts, just fresh air, trees, and the sound of my own footsteps. My grandmother hated that. She grew up in a mountain village where forests weren't just places. They remember people, she'd tell me. If you ever get lost in forest, she whispered, and you see someone who looks exactly like you, she grabbed my wrist. Don't look twice. Don't follow it. And whatever you do, don't let it know you've recognized it. I always thought it was just another old family legend, until last October. I found a hiking trail in a national forest that had recently reopened after a wildfire. The entire loop was supposed to take about 6 hours. The reviews called it peaceful. Hardly anyone visited because most people still assumed the area was closed. Perfect. I downloaded the trail map, packed extra food, filled my water bottles, and started just after 8 that morning. Everything felt normal. The air was cool. Birds called from the trees. Squirrels darted across the trail. The first 3 hours were exactly what I'd hoped for. I even stopped beside a creek to eat lunch. At one point I checked my watch. It was 11:52 a.m. After lunch I continued deeper into the forest. The trail narrowed. The trees grew taller. The sunlight struggled to reach the ground. Still, nothing felt wrong. Until I checked my watch again. 3:41 p.m. I stopped walking. That couldn't be right. It felt like maybe 30 minutes had passed. An hour at most. There was no memory of the afternoon. No memory of hiking for another 4 hours. I pulled out my phone. No signal. That wasn't unusual, but something else was. The downloaded map refused to load. Instead of showing the trail, the screen displayed a blank gray square. I restarted the app. Nothing. I unfolded my paper map. The trail marker beside me read, Ash Hollow Junction. I searched the map. No Ash Hollow, no junction. No trail leading where I was standing. It was as if I'd wandered onto a path that didn't exist. A cold breeze rolled through the trees. I zipped up my yellow rain jacket. That's when I realized something else. The birds were gone, not quieter. Gone, no insects, no wind in the branches. Even the forest smelled different, like wet stone after heavy rain. I decided to turn around, simple, retrace my steps. Except after 20 minutes, I reached the same fallen tree I'd stepped over earlier. The same broken sign. The same boulder shaped like a chair. I frowned. Maybe I'd accidentally taken a loop. So I tried another direction. 30 minutes later, I reached the same tree again. This time my pulse quickened. I marked the trunk with my pocket knife. A small tent, then I walked in the opposite direction for almost an hour. When the fog began rolling across the ground, I found the tree again. My ex was still there. The fog thickened until I could barely see 20 feet ahead. I called out. No answer. I shouted louder. Nothing. Even my own voice sounded muffled, like the forest was swallowing it. Then I felt it. That unmistakable feeling that someone was standing just behind me. Not close enough to touch, close enough to watch. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around. I did. Nothing. Only fog. I laughed nervously. My grandmother's stories were getting into my head. I kept walking. The feeling returned. Always behind me, always just out of sight. Every time I turned, nothing. It was nearly dark when I noticed movement ahead. Far beyond the fog, someone was standing on the trail, too far away to make out their face. I almost called for help. Then my flashlight caught a flash of yellow. A yellow jacket, just like mine. I froze. Maybe another hiker. I raised the flashlight again. The figure hadn't moved. Something about it felt wrong. There was a dark mud stain near my wrist from where I'd slipped crossing the creek. I looked back. The figure had the same stain. Exactly the same shape. My stomach turned. Grandma's story. Don't look twice. I lowered the flashlight immediately and walked into the trees without looking back. I don't know how long I walked. Minutes, hours. Time no longer meant anything. The fog seemed to move with me. I felt that I was not in a loophole, but every few minutes that feeling returned. Someone behind me, keeping the same distance. Never closer, never farther away. Once, I heard footsteps. Not behind me, beside me, matching mine perfectly. When I stopped, they stopped. I never looked. Night fell completely. My phone had 1% battery, still no signal. Then the screen went black. The forest became absolute darkness. Exhaustion finally won. I found the largest tree I could, curled against the trunk, head inside my jacket where I could feel a bit safe. Before closing my eyes, I whispered the only thing I could remember from my grandmother's story. Please, don't recognize me. The next thing I remember, bright lights hurt my eyes. A machine beeped steadily. My mother beside me. I was in a hospital. The doctor smiled when he realized I was awake. You gave everyone quite a scare. I asked what happened. He looked confused. A group of hikers found you unconscious. Where? About 4 hours up the trail. I stared at him. No. I was much deeper than that. He shook his head. You weren't. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. You've been asleep for 2 days. 2 days. To me, it had been one night. When I got home, I told everyone everything. The missing hours. The trail that wasn't on the map. The silence. The fog. The feeling of being followed. The person wearing my jacket. My dad blamed dehydration and hallucinations, saying, sometimes when we are alone, our brain can play trick on us. My friend said I dreamed it after getting lost. Nobody believed me, except my grandmother, who listened without interrupting, and I could see that she believed on my story. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 1 a.m, I got out of bed for a glass of water. As I passed the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection out of the corner of my eye. I stopped, looked, and felt relaxed. I am so grateful I got out of whatever it was. I was driving home from college for fall break. I had been counting down the days until I could leave campus. Between classes, assignments, and exams, I just wanted a few days where I didn't have to worry about anything. My dad had offered to come pick me up. You don't have to drive all the way home by yourself, he told me. But I convinced him I was fine. I had made the drive before. I packed my car after my last class, said goodbye to my friends, and started the drive home as the sun was setting. The first part of the trip was normal. I listened to music, thought about sleeping in my own bed, and looked forward to spending time with my dad. I had no idea that a few hours later, I would be hiding inside my own car, afraid to make a single sound. About halfway through the drive, the road became almost completely empty. No houses, no gas stations, no other cars, just trees on both sides and the sound of my tires against the pavement. Then it happened. A deer ran across the road. I saw it for less than a second. I slammed on the brakes and turned the wheel. The tires lost control. The car spun across the wet pavement. Everything outside the windows became a blur. Then the car slammed into a ditch. The impact threw me forward against the seatbelt. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. I just sat there, listening to my own breathing. My hands were shaking. My shoulder hurt where the seatbelt had caught me. But I was alive. I slowly checked myself. Nothing was seriously hurt. I tried to start the car. The engine clicked once, then stopped. I tried again. Nothing. I looked at my phone. 3% battery. My stomach dropped. I immediately called my dad. He answered almost instantly. Emily? Dad? My voice cracked. I got into an accident. His voice changed right away. Are you hurt? I don't think so. A deer ran out and I lost control. The car is stuck in a ditch and it won't start. Are you bleeding? No. Can you get out of the car? I looked out the window. The trees surrounding me looked completely black. No? He hesitated. Stay inside. I opened my map and read him my location before my signal started cutting out. I have it, he said. I'm coming. Then his voice became serious. Emily, listen carefully. Lock your doors. They're already locked. Good. Keep them locked. Something about his tone made me stop. Do not get out of that car for anyone. The only person you opened that door for is me. I swallowed. Okay, I'll be there as fast as I can. The call ended. A second later, my phone screen went black. The battery was dead. I sat there quietly. The first thing I did was turn off everything inside the car. The dashboard screen, the interior lights, anything that could make it obvious someone was inside. The car became completely dark. Not just dim. Completely dark. I couldn't see my hands in front of my face. I didn't check outside. I didn't do anything that could draw attention. I just sat there, waiting. Doors locked. Windows closed. Exactly like my dad told me. I checked my watch. 10:18 p.m. My dad was at least 30 minutes away. Even if he left the second we hung up, he couldn't be here yet. That thought helped. I wasn't trapped forever. I just had to wait. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The silence outside started feeling heavier. Every small sound made me tense. A branch breaking, the wind moving through the trees, the sound of my own breathing. I kept telling myself the same thing. Stay calm. Dad is coming. Then, I saw headlights. Far away, coming down the road. My heart jumped. For 1 second I smiled, but then I looked at my watch. Only 11 minutes had passed. There was no possible way. The vehicle got closer. I could tell immediately it wasn't my dad's truck. It was an old pickup. Large tires, mud covering the sides. One headlight looked weaker than the other. The truck slowed down when it reached my car. I stayed completely still. I watched through the darkness, waiting for it to pass, but it didn't. The truck stopped. The engine kept running. Then I heard doors opening. Men stepped out, their voices carried through the night. They were laughing loudly. They sounded drunk. I heard something hit the ground, then glass breaking. My entire body went cold. They weren't acting like people who had stopped to help. They were acting like people who had found something interesting. Then one of them said, "She's still inside." My breathing stopped. They knew, I don't know how. But they knew. I moved. Slowly, quietly. I climbed from the driver's seat into the back. Every movement felt impossible to make without sound. I grabbed my jacket and the blanket I kept in the car. Then I lowered myself onto the floor behind the seats. I covered myself completely. No part of me visible, no movement, no sound. The car was still completely dark. The doors were locked. The keys were in my hand. I pressed myself against the floor and tried to slow my breathing. Outside, the footsteps got closer, closer, closer. Then they stopped beside my door. A hand grabbed the handle and pulled. Click. The door stayed locked. Nobody spoke. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then someone whispered, "She's hiding!" And the handle moved again. Click. Still locked. I covered my mouth with both hands, trying to keep my breathing as quiet as possible. I felt my entire body was shaking. I didn't even dare adjust my position. Outside the car, nobody spoke for several seconds. Then one of the men laughed softly. "See? Someone's definitely in there?" Another voice answered. "How do you know?" The first man didn't respond immediately. A cold feeling ran through me. I wasn't sure what he meant, but I knew one thing. They weren't guessing. They were looking for me. Footsteps moved away from the driver's door, slowly. I heard them walking around the car. One set of footsteps, then another, then another. They weren't leaving. They were checking. The first man stopped near the passenger side. The door handle pulled. Click locked. He moved to the back door. Click locked. I could hear their breathing now. They were close. Too close. One of them tapped on the window. Not hard. Just enough to let me know he knew someone was inside. "Hey." His voice sounded calmer now. Almost friendly. "You don't have to hide." I didn't answer. "You got lucky we came across you." Silence. "We're just trying to help." I kept my eyes closed. I didn't believe him. A different man spoke. "Maybe she called someone." The first man laughed. "With what?" "Nobody gets service out here." My stomach tightened. A few seconds passed. Then one of them said something that made my blood run cold. "How long until the they gets here?" The others went quiet. "What?" The one she's waiting for. I froze. How did they know I was waiting for someone? Had they been watching me before they stopped? Had they seen my phone? My thoughts started racing. I wanted to move. I wanted to start the car. I wanted to scream. But I knew the second I made a sound, they would know exactly where I was. The men continued talking, not loudly anymore, like they'd forgotten I could hear them. She won't open the door. Then we will make her. A pause. Then another voice said, "Don't." The way he said it was different. Not scared, more like he was warning them. Someone is coming. My heart jumped. Dad, could he already be close? No, it was too soon. It couldn't be him. Then I heard something I hadn't noticed before. A second vehicle, far away. The sound of an engine approaching. The men heard it too. Everything changed. The footsteps stopped. The laughing stopped. For the first time since they arrived, they sounded nervous. "Get back in the truck." The men moved quickly. Their footsteps rushed away from my car. Doors opened. Someone started the engine. The pickup pulled away. I stayed hidden. I didn't move. Because something felt wrong. If they were leaving, why did it feel like they were still nearby? The engine sound faded into the distance. The road became silent again. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, still nothing. I almost lifted the blanket, almost. Then I heard it. A sound directly outside my window. I stopped breathing, slow and careful. Someone hadn't left. Someone was still standing beside my car. I stayed frozen under the blanket. My mind was screaming at me to look, to see who was there. But I remembered my dad's words. "Don't get out. Don't unlock the door. Don't trust anyone until you see me." The person outside didn't knock, didn't speak, didn't try the handle. They just stood there, waiting. Then, after minutes, a voice quietly said, "Emily?" My heart dropped, because I knew that voice. It was my dad. The voice outside said my name again. "Emily?" My entire body went cold. It sounded exactly like my dad, not similar, not close, exactly like him. For a second I almost moved, almost reached for the door lock. Then I stopped, because something didn't make sense. My dad knew the rule. He was the one who made it. He would never expect me to open the door just because I heard his voice. He would know I needed proof. So I stayed silent. The person outside waited, then knocked softly on the window. "Emily, it's me." I pressed my hand over my mouth. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. "Open the door. I know you can hear me." Still, I didn't move. A few seconds passed. Then the voice changed. Not completely, just enough. The warmth disappeared. The patience disappeared. "Emily, why are you making this difficult?" My blood turned cold. That wasn't my dad. My dad would never say that. The footsteps moved away from the car. Slowly. Then silence returned. I don't know how long I stayed hidden. It felt like hours. Eventually I heard another vehicle approaching. This time I didn't get excited. I didn't assume. I waited. The vehicle stopped. The engine turned off. A door opened. Footsteps approached. Then I heard a familiar voice again. "Emily?" My dad. But I still didn't move. "Emily, it's me." I stayed silent. Then he said something only my real dad would know. My eyes filled with tears. That was real. That was my dad. Only then did I slowly uncover myself. I climbed back into the front seat with shaking hands. I unlocked the door. My dad opened it and pulled me into a hug before I could even say anything. I started crying. Not because I was hurt, because I had been holding my fear inside for so long that the second I knew I was safe, everything came out. My dad kept asking if I was okay, if I was hurt. I told him what happened. The truck, the men, the voice outside the car. He looked confused and scared. "What did the voice say?" I swallowed. "They called my name." He went quiet. Then he looked at the car. At the locked doors, at the blankets in the back seat. "You did the right thing." We never found out who those men were. The truck was gone by the time my dad arrived. There were no houses nearby, no reason anyone should have been there. A few weeks later, my dad asked me something that still bothers me. "Emily, did you touch window?" I told him no, not once. Then he showed me something. A handprint marked in my car, right beside the back window, the exact spot where I'd been hiding. The disturbing part, the handprint wasn't on the outside. It was on the inside. I still don't know how it got there. I only know one thing. That night, my dad saved me by telling me not to trust anyone outside that car. I was 23 when I took a seasonal job maintaining hiking trails in a protected state forest. Most people think trail workers spend all day cutting down trees. That's not how it works. My job was mostly inspections. Every morning I'd drive to a different trailhead, hike several miles, trim small branches with a folding saw, clear brush, replace damaged trail markers, inspect bridges and boardwalks, and radio in anything too large for the chainsaw crew. Most days, I never saw another person. I liked it that way. For the first month, nothing unusual happened. Then hikers started making the same complaint. Not about bears, not about getting lost, about a man asking for directions. Everyone described him almost word for word. Brown jacket, black backpack, friendly smile, mid-30s. Always asking the same question. Can you tell me how to get back? That wasn't strange. People got turned around out there all the time. What was strange? No one ever saw where he came from, or where he went. The older rangers joked about it. Trail ghost? One of them laughed. Everyone else chuckled, except Mike. Mike had worked there for over 30 years. He never smiled when the subject came up. After the meeting, I asked him if he'd ever seen the guy. He shook his head. No. Mike looked into the woods before answering. My father worked here before me. What happened? He met the man once, and he finished his shift. Mike paused. 3 days later, I met him. I was replacing a cracked trail sign near a creek crossing when I heard footsteps behind me. A man stood on the trail. Brown jacket, black backpack. Exactly like everyone had described. He smiled politely. Sorry to bother you. Can you tell me how to get back? I pointed toward the main trail. Parking lot's about 2 miles that way. Thanks. He nodded, then stepped off the trail. Not onto another path, straight into thick woods where every step should have snapped branches. Instead, silence. Complete silence. I waited. Nothing. I walked over expecting to find footprints. There weren't any. The ground was damp enough to hold my own boot prints perfectly. His weren't there. When I reported it, nobody laughed. Mike only asked one question. Did he thank you? Yeah. Mike quietly closed the incident notebook. You should avoid working alone for a while. That was the first time anyone admitted something wasn't right. A week later, I started finding footprints. Just one set. Fresh. Always leading away from the trail, never returning. I assumed someone was ignoring the park boundaries, so I followed them. For almost half a mile. They ended in a small clearing. There wasn't a campsite, no trash, no fire pit, just an old wooden chair facing an enormous oak tree. It looked like it had been sitting there for decades. Nails sticking out, green moss growing across the legs. Someone had carved words into the oak. Please don't sit. I smiled. Probably teenagers. I took a photo for my report. Then my radio crackled. Unit 4 status? I've got an abandoned chair off Trail 8. Static. I looked at the chair, still empty. I backed away without taking another step toward it. That night I checked the photo. It wasn't there. Not deleted. Missing. The pictures before and after were still on my phone. Like I'd never taken one. I convinced myself the camera hadn't saved it. The next morning I went back with GPS coordinates. I found the exact location. No chair, no oak tree, nothing but ordinary forest. I searched for nearly an hour. Everything looked the same. Eventually I gave up. Then someone started carving messages into the trail markers. Fresh knife marks. Not old graffiti. The first one simply read, Rest. The next marker, Go home. Half a mile later, Wait here. None of those carvings had been there the day before. I knew because I'd installed 2 of those markers myself. Somebody was following me. That explanation made far more sense than anything else. So I requested another ranger to work with me. Management said they were short-staffed. I was back alone the next morning. 3 days later, a family reported their 10-year-old son missing. The search started immediately. State police, dogs, volunteers. Everyone spread through the forest. Just before sunset, I found him. He was sitting in an old wooden chair, facing an enormous oak tree. The same clearing, the same chair. He wasn't crying. He wasn't hurt. He was smiling. I knelt beside him. "Hey, buddy, your parents are looking everywhere for you." Without looking at me, he whispered. He said not to interrupt. "Who?" "The man." I looked around. Nobody. I picked him up. The second I lifted him, he started screaming, not from fear, from anger. "No, he'll get mad. We have to wait." He fought the entire walk back. When the search team found us, his parents hugged him so hard they both started crying. Everyone called it a miracle. I told myself it was over. 3 weeks later, I saw same boy picture in the local news. The headline read, "Missing Boy." He'd walked out to play, but never came back. I quit 2 weeks later. On my last day, Mike handed me an old notebook. Inside were handwritten ranger reports going back decades. Almost every few years, someone mentioned finding a wooden chair. Someone reported a polite man in a brown jacket asking for directions. Then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The descriptions never changed. Same clothes, same backpack, same age. The oldest report was from 1968. Last month, curiosity got the better of me. I drove back. I never entered the forest. I stayed parked near the entrance with the engine running. About 20 minutes later, someone knocked on my passenger window. Brown jacket, black backpack, friendly smile. He leaned down slightly. "Sorry to bother you. Can you tell me how to get back?" This time, I didn't answer. I locked the doors, shifted into drive, and left. I didn't stop until I was home. As I grabbed my backpack from the passenger seat, I noticed dried mud into the fabric. No one had been sitting there. At least, no one I ever saw. Before you go, if you enjoyed this story, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and supporting the channel. Every bit of support means more than you know, and it helps me continue bringing you even more creepy, mysterious, and unsettling stories.